This is Foodie Call on the G1 podcast.
Hi, this is Chuck from Cali Kitchen.
This is Thomas, the ambassador's private chef.
Which ambassador, homie?
The U.S. ambassador.
James, Windy City Pizza.
I am GP, your average American expat here, I guess.
Did you say expat hero?
No, here. Oh, that's even better. Expat hero. Yeah, all right, cool. Let's work with that. I am GP, your expat hero, and we are Foodie Call on G1 Podcast. It's been a while since we put anything up. It's been a while, actually, since the four of us have been in the same place. If you missed our last episode, we did that on One Star House Party, and Chuck was kind enough to hook us up with them. And before that, we did Cocktails in Korea, so make sure to check those out. They're all on the playlist on YouTube or on SoundCloud or wherever you get the podcast from. But today, we are returning to our name. Actually, for those of you who don't know, Foodie Call was named by Chuck here. Any inspiration? You want to explain where Foodie Call comes from? You just like had a late night on Friday, it's 3 a.m.
It sounds a lot like Booty Call, but you know, it's so much tastier when it's a Foodie Call.
Do you get a lot of booty calls?
I get a lot of foodie calls. People are like, "Let's eat." So, yeah, let's leave it at that.
Lonely. So full bellies boy. And like we're keeping the pants on. Okay. Thus is the name Foodie Call, and we're gonna be getting a little bit dirtier today, getting our hands dirty, and talking about social media a little bit. In particular, a Facebook group, which I'm sure many of you know us from, Restaurant Buzz Seoul.
Ribs. If you say it really fast, it's like ribs.
Yeah, RBS, right? That's what we're going to call it, RBS. And for those of you unfamiliar with it, actually it's been described by many of my close friends as the OINK, the only in Korea Facebook group of food, because it devolves so quickly. And in concept, I thought, when I joined, I was like, oh, great. I get to learn about where all the best things are. And I do, but there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot of storms going on in that.
Yeah, so is that how he would describe it to a person on the outside?
It's like 90% storm and about 10% good quality reviews and, restaurant talk.
And the good quality reviews, they come from you, right, Thomas?
No, that's just... I think that's James, actually.
Yeah, that is a lot, James. That's how I knew him. And his ridiculous, forever turtleneck profile picture, the Steve Jobs one.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I kind of miss it now. I kind of miss it. I'm like, where is the leaning turtleneck picture,
Oh, it's hidden away somewhere.
The seduction is still there with the new one, though. All
I
right.
suppose.
Speaking of James, you're going to be introducing our topic to us now. Since you're one of the first commenters on this thread in RBS that actually kind of sparked the inspiration for this. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, for a little bit of context, RBS is, as far as food groups go, it's probably one of the most active food groups out there. And that's sort of the beauty of it, right? People are very active on the site. They're very active to sort of post, and they're active to sort of share what they, where they've been and where they've eaten. And that's very nice. The negative of it, if you want to call it a little bit negative, is there's also a lot of trolling in there. There's also a lot of very snarky personalities in there. And those people are also very quick to sort of point out what they either like or how they either agree or disagree with whoever's posting.
It feels like they're on their high horse a little bit, or they're coming from a very entitled background or a place where you didn't have to make sacrifices in authenticity and price and da. So comparisons aren't exactly fair.
But I think that's sort of what makes it fun, too. And I suppose it's also a good thing that there are moderators and administrators in that group to sort of keep everything to, let's say, a PG-13 level. So it doesn't just become...
You're pushing the limits of PG-13.
Well, ultimately or otherwise, it'll become like other Facebook groups where it's just like, hey, you, after a certain point when people have sort of had it up to a certain point. Yeah, and these days...
You ever said that to anyone on RBS, guys? You ever just been like, hey, you?
No, I've wanted to, but
okay.
never have.
Okay. Food, people feel passionately, man. People feel so passionately. It's kind of scary. Okay, so passionately, the topic of discussion.
Yeah, and then these days, we've got a lot of threads being put up there by a particular gentleman, which it's not even so subtle. Let's just call him Detroit.
Okay. His name is Detroit for all intents and purposes.
And if you've read anything that he posts, it's very obvious why we call him Detroit, you know. And it's one of those, he's one of those guys, when I first started reading, I sort of had to figure out, is this guy a troll? Like, he must just be doing this on purpose to get under people's skin. But then the more you read, and, you know, I've actually had conversations with him off to the side, and he just really likes Detroit.
James, where are you from?
Chicago.
I'm from San Jose, California. Chuck?
Orange County, California.
Thomas?
New York.
Okay. Just to be clear, and we have nothing against Detroit, right?
We're not from Detroit.
I lived around
the city.
Detroit.
We might have something against Detroit. The individual is what we're trying to kind of get into here. But all right, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like I sort of moderate sometimes because I lived around Detroit for about 12 years. And so a lot of these things he references, I understand. And so I almost feel bad for him sometimes when he catches a lot of flack on Restaurant Buzz. You know, just from people who are like, all right already.
So this time being no different, what is the buzz on him this time? What's the controversy about Detroit?
Here's the true background story. He actually contacted me.
Okay.
And he was telling me that it was his wife's 10th anniversary and he wanted to take her to some place special. So he asked me about, you know, where I had this 2-kilogram steak that I ate. And I told him it was at Wolfgang's.
You finished a 2-kilogram steak?
Yes.
Not by himself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But still.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's a side story. But anyway, I told him the 2-kilogram steak was at Wolfgang's. And so then he asked me about Mix and Malt. And he asked me, do they have steaks there? And I said, yes, they do have steaks there. But the steak there is sous vide. And it's more or less about a 300-gram steak. And so he's like, okay, maybe that's more suitable for me then.
That's more suitable for most human beings.
Or for him and his wife's 10th anniversary.
Okay.
Based on size and consumption? Like
Based on size, I guess. I guess he didn't want to pay for a 2-kilogram steak. I don't know I didn't ask him, but...
All right, well, that's neither here nor there, so he went with
Mix
and Malt.
Mix and Malt.
Okay.
So at the Wolfgang's, he describes how he liked basically every single aspect of having eaten at Wolfgang's, and which is fine, you know. And then he went on to sort of describe how that was, to his idea, what a high-end restaurant should be. And then that whole thread sort of devolved into, you know, what high-end is and what mid-end is and what low-end is. And I think that was in reference to having gone to Mix and Malt prior and having, let's say, the complete opposite experience from what he had expected to have at Mix and Malt.
Based off of reviews from RBS.
Based off of reviews from RBS.
Okay.
And it was a little bit unfair, in my opinion, because if anyone's ever been to Mix and Malt, you know exactly what you're going to get. But I guess he lives in Ansan or outside of Seoul, and he had made the trip to come out to Seoul to eat specifically there for their anniversary, and he had this big expectation of what he wanted to eat there.
Okay.
And apparently his wife doesn't like steak cooked medium rare. And that's the only type of steak that they do at Mix and Malt.
That's unfortunate.
Well, just to be clear, it is a sous vide steak.
Sure.
Right. So sous vide steak can't really be served any other, you know, like that's the design of the steak, right?
But do you think Detroit knew that?
I didn't know that. I'm not saying I'm siding with anyone here.
Yeah.
But I just learned that right now. So
Right.
there we go.
Right. Okay.
So Detroit, I would say 99.9% didn't know that.
Okay.
Look at you 0.1%er, Chuck.
Hey.
Look at you educating people. Okay. So now he learns the painful way. What happens?
He absolutely learns the painful way. And so they get there, and as soon as the food is served, his wife is absolutely not happy. In fact, she is livid, right? Because they tried to get it done, you know, more well done than the way it was served, and they weren't able to sort of facilitate that because that's not what they do, right?
So-
they make pub food.
I see.
So she ended up ordering buffalo wings for her 10th anniversary dinner. And he ordered lasagna. And she was not happy with it. She did not even eat the buffalo wings. She just ordered them, sat there, and then basically got pissed off and then stormed out of the restaurant, thinking that this was not the type of restaurant that was appropriate for a 10th anniversary dinner.
Was she angry? Do you? No, I'm sure it's kind of impossible for you to know, but I'm gonna ask anyway. Do you know if she was angry at the restaurant or at Detroit or at the situation?
I think at Detroit.
Okay. Okay.
Wait, so this was Detroit's first time at Mix and Malt?
Yes.
There
So
we go.
anyway, the following weekend they go to Wolfgang's, and he actually contacted me again, and he asked me about Wolfgang's, and I said, dude, just make a reservation, go there, and treat her to a nice dinner if that's what she wanted. So he goes to Wolfgang's, he has his nice dinner there, and then he posts this whole review about Wolfgang's, and he says that this is considered for him, this is what a fine dining high-end restaurant is.
I actually have read the thread a few days ago. I'm hoping it's dead now, quite frankly, because I read it. It took like 5 minutes, and I was like, wow, that devolved quickly. And it feels like what really shook a lot of boats here was he was trying to reformat the entire group itself to be like, we should frame low-end, mid, and high-end restaurants by a certain criteria and define them, blah, 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 blah. And James, how did you feel about that? Because I remember you commented. I saw one of your comments.
It just didn't make sense. Like the words low end, mid end, and high end are all fairly relative terms.
Exactly.
Right? So for me, I was just like, look, everyone that posts, for the most part, they give you pictures, they tell you where it is, they show you what it looks like, and they tell you how much the food costs. Isn't that enough?
That's more exact than the subjective low, mid, and high end. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like knowing the price is much more valuable to me than knowing what you think of that price.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then you guys have also read the thread. How did that change from that point on? It didn't just die there.
No,
like he had a few rebuttals in there, right?
Right. I mean, like my biggest point, because I didn't really comment as much as a lot of the other people, but my biggest thing was, in what universe would you be comparing Mix and Malt to Wolfgang? That's just the first thing that occurred to me, because even before I went to Mix and Malt, because Mix and Malt is actually highly reviewed on RBS.
Saturated.
As in, people complain that there's too many reviews about Mix and Malt.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like just based on the reviews, you get a sense that, first of all, it's a bar.
Yeah.
It's a bar. And honestly, like my biggest complaint about the food is that they don't do anything like fancy. They don't do anything like adventurous per se. All of their stuff is really about like hitting on flavors that remind you of how just to do it the right way, like the way you
Covering
taste
the basics well.
Exactly. It's like comfort food. I tell people personally that I think it's like the best buffalo buffalo wings that I've had in Korea.
Okay, so you are not on the same page as the wife here.
Oh, no. I mean, I think she has very legitimate reasons to be angry.
No, just
at that
on
point.
buffalo wings.
Right. No,
Yeah.
but I mean, at that point, she was more angry. She wasn't probably hating on the buffalo wings, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean...
I just want to see a buffalo wing slap. I mean, kimchi slap has been done, right?
I would get slapped and I would lick that sauce off my own face because
That's how good it is.
No, it's Frank's Red Hot. It's butter. Like that's just the way it should be done. It's super, it's super straightforward.
Okay.
So yeah,
I remember being there. I got a dish and 2 cocktails. I think it ran me a little bit less than $40. How much would the equivalent run me, or something like that, run me at Wolfgang's to demonstrate the spectrum that we're talking about here?
But I think the menu is so different that you really can't compare. So you're talking about a steakhouse versus a whiskey and cocktail bar.
And not a cheap steakhouse either.
Right.
Okay.
So-
Okay. Well, that'll give us something to kind of think about there. Okay. So how did he kind of come back at this whole you saying that there are more exact metrics by which to judge a restaurant than simply your opinion of low, mid, and high end? What did Detroit have to say?
I think he was trying to set a metric. I think he was trying to say, hey, no, like let's all get on the same page. I want to define things so we can be clear. So next time, but for me, part of this approach, the underlying thing, it seems as if, he was kind of blaming the group or blaming,
It did come off
like
strong.
the community for misguiding him, it seemed, But at the end of the day, I think my opinion is that you have a lot of information. You have to make the decisions and you have to live with those decisions. But I mean, it was just like there was a disconnect, right? Like most people won't put Mix and Malt and Wolfgang in the same category, but for him, for whatever reason, he did put them in the same category, or in the calculation or the scheme of things, right?
And just a little bit of commentary before you move on to your point here, Thomas. Yeah, I think most people would agree with that. And most people's comments were something along the lines of like when they realized that he was putting Wolfgang's and Mixed Malt on the same scale, they were like, LOL, bro. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Thomas.
So at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't RBS that misguided him. He was the one that was just misguided the whole time himself. So
it was something that could have been taken care of so easily. All you had to do is double check the source, look up another place, look up some of the other pictures that when you see, like when you constantly see chili fries, BLTs, the meatloaf,
all that
those
stuff
type of
is, for
things
the most part,
posted
it's there.
That should be a pretty big clue as to what kind of food you're going to be getting there and what sort of service to sort of expect.
I think that he was trying to create a Yelp out of something that's very, very casual, right?
I think you're right. He might have liked to have seen like $1 sign, $2 sign, or $3 signs for the price range, right? To see, is it a $1 type of range or a $2 sign range? Or
we're making him seem so basic, but would you say he's not? You know what? Let's leave that question unanswered. If you want to check it out, you can check out RBS Seoul yourself. Let's take a step back into this whole thing. Like RBS, I want to talk about the group itself a little bit. Really, at the end of the day, is it better than nothing? Because this went from this guy trying to, I think somewhere in there was a noble intention to make the group better. And then like 5 posts in, somebody posts a link that says, let me Google that for you. And when you click it, literally, it's a website that shows in the search bar the words being typed out and the results being Googled for you, like your ass getting wiped like a baby. And it was just so degrading to him. And I just, I LOL'd. I didn't comment, but I think I clicked like. But yeah, RBS Seoul, is it really worth all the trouble and all the heartache people getting upset? This guy really got upset, and like first he came off neutral and then later on very heated.
Well, for me, I just feel like because of the way Korea is, there really aren't a lot of good options to get great information. But at the end of the day, everything you have to take it into context of what it is. And I think that's the reason why, whether it's James, Thomas, or myself, or whoever's like looking at it and not getting stressed out about it, like can enjoy it on that level. Because I've seen James scrolling, looking at RBS, saying, "This is my entertainment for the for the evening."
It's my entertainment for the morning. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's like watching it, reading it as if like, oh, this is the best. He's like watching celebrity gossip, basically, right? And he's just like, oh, this is his Kim Kardashian news that he's getting a food boner about.
I don't need pop culture, I don't need to know what's going on in Hollywood. It's just really entertaining. There are a lot of pluses and minuses. The only reason I started posting was when I first heard about the group and joined. It was pretty amazing to me a few years ago because when I had sort of moved from Bundang to Seoul, there wasn't really anything that I knew of or anywhere that I knew of to, let's say, even go get like Mexican food and stuff like that. And that's where I first learned about Don Charlie's and places like Coreanos. I had only known Vatos at that point. And I didn't really know where to get good burgers besides like, what's that? Wolfhound, the place. And so I went and I slowly started going to one of these, each place. And back then, since people really only reviewed like the same 3 or 4 restaurants back then, I would just throw in my 2 cents about, hey, I went to Don Charlie's and this is what I thought of it. Or, hey, I went to Coreanos and this was sort of the experience that I had. Because that was sort of my way of sort of, let's say, I was thankful to have learned about those places. And so that's how I knew to sort of pay back, what I gained from that site. And from doing that, I just sort of got to enjoy posting. And I had a lot more free time back then. So I started going to, let's say, different places that I knew weren't being talked about. And then I just start posting about those type of places. And that's really where it all sort of began. And that's what I like about the site too, because it was a lot more snarky back then too.
Really?
As snarky as it is now, it was pretty bad back then too, because the moderation was fairly lax and there weren't as many members. And then as sort of more and more members started coming in, then the policing of the site started happening a little bit more often.
That's so fascinating that you enjoy reading it, and admittedly, it's your entertainment.
Yes.
And you're sitting there, just ROFL, LOL in the morning with your breakfast or whatever. But do you engage in any trolling? Because I haven't seen you do that. You might. I don't watch everything you post, James.
I think when I first started, I sort of let the inner cynic and the inner sarcastic bastard out, and I would join in, and I would just be like, well, what the are you talking about? That makes absolutely no sense. But then pretty quickly on after that, it was like, I didn't really want to be that guy. And I didn't really want to add to sort of that thing. It was much more fun just to sort of...
Is it even worth being that guy?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was just much more fun to sort of watch. And even sometimes, you almost feel like, sometimes you come to someone else's defense because he's just getting pounded and pounded. It's like, look, that doesn't make any sense either. Just because just because he feels this way, that's the way he feels. He's ultimately entitled to that. And just because 30 people don't agree with it, that's the way it is. It's like, you don't have to beat them up over here to do that. Because I've seen there are a lot of people that have actually posted once, and then after getting beat up by the group, they just stop posting. And I sort of feel bad for that. Yeah, I feel bad for that
us
too.
as expats,
because
that we're decreasing rhetoric.
Because just because I may not like the last 5 restaurants that have been reviewed that were posted up, I'm still glad that they were posted, right? Because those are places I didn't know about. But now I'll just be able to make my judgment in terms of whether or not I choose to go to those places or not.
Look at you, Mr. Free Speech. I like that. Thomas, I feel like you enjoy getting a rise out of people just as an individual.
I don't think so. I don't do it on purpose.
Oh, okay. Dude, okay, so if you're listening to this and what you don't see is the organization of this podcast, and we have a Kakao group chat going, and I'm over here like, hey guys, you free Tuesday night? And then Thomas is like making some snide joke at Chuck, and I'm like, can I just get a yes or a no? I feel like you purposely are like, no, I'm not going to deal with GP right now. I'm going to go off and see if anybody, you guys want to go eat. And I'm like, oh, gosh. Okay, so this is unintentional.
Well,
you're not just f***ing with me.
No.
Okay.
But the eating part that took priority at that moment.
I like how we're airing out the laundry right now. Yeah.
Okay, so is it worth getting upset over, or should people just detach?
I don't think it's worth getting upset over. I mean, RBS, it's a good place to be used as a resource. But anything other than that, there are a bunch of trolls.
I think, like we can get on the same page about that, right, guys? Do we agree that it's a resource and take it for what it is?
For what it is.
Just another Facebook group.
But both of you guys, I've seen you guys get riled up over things people have posted too, right? As in, like, even though you don't like fall into the trap of just like, being baited into it, but you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe whatever, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'll have opinions about what people say. I just don't feel like those opinions need to be shared in that group at that time.
Right. Okay. So discretion and
absolutely. And even with Thomas, like, the only time I've ever seen him write anything negative, it's always about the food that he's eaten, right? It's not about a particular person, so to speak. So, it's almost to where I can almost imagine being Thomas, having eaten that meal and being like, oh, what the it's like, this shouldn't have been like this. This shouldn't have been like that. Right. And then that's what he's just conveying in his Facebook post. It's like, hey, I went to eat this and it wasn't really good because of this, and this.
I strive for that level of description with my food porn posts. The question here, though, is now we're going to make it a little bit more meta. Are we going to attempt to define low, middle, and high end? Or are we going to totally invalidate everything we said over the last half hour?
It's hard to define because... First of all, everyone comes from a different background. So what I consider high-end and what someone else considers high-end, or let's say what I consider high-end and what Detroit considers high-end, they're going to be completely on opposite ends of the spectrum. And, for people who have eaten at a lot of restaurants and have, run the gamut of, what really is low end to high end, I think we could come to some sort of agreement, but not everyone on RBS comes from that background. So
I think that it's kind of pointless to try to define, but I will, however, say that you can define value, because I find that at certain places, places we've recommended. We don't need to mention them again, but there's a lot of value. We tend to err on the side of value here on this podcast because, that everybody likes that, and we try to have that everywhere we go. We want more than our money can get us. We want to stretch every single won, every single dollar rate. And I think that's something that we could actually work on when we're describing places, that this place is a value.
Sure.
And, knowing exactly how much money and what you're getting for that is far better than, hey, it's high end.
But I guess for me, just going back to like trying to be helpful to somebody even like Detroit, I feel like, what are things that we can talk about, And for me, I think the biggest thing I would take away is that if he's going for, a special occasion, you're looking for a certain type of dining experience. And I think even being served like hand and foot or being taken care of, or whether it's like a fine dining atmosphere, you have to dress up for this restaurant, or, like there are different things that do define that, I feel, but that's not necessarily always determinant of price.
Ambiance is a big thing, right?
Right. So it's like there are, it's like can this be a romantic place, even stuff like, do they accept reservations? Do they have parking? Like little things always add up to the sum, right, of what things are, and they help you make a decision. So I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to say there are things that are helpful, but
those amenities.
But it's hard to say like, oh, they all fall into here, Because even in the high end per se category, I think there's so many different dining experiences that if I wanted, like, a lot of times fine dining is not a good meal for a lot of people. That's what I think. So as in like depending on what kind of experience you want, I think, that's what you'd have to look for. Like, kind of be very specific about, because I feel like even the people who ask questions on RBS or people who ask questions in general, they ask the wrong or the bad questions, right? If they ask better questions, they might get more specific answers to what they're looking for. I don't know.
It takes a lot of communication and looking into the way you speak to actually realize that you're asking the wrong questions. So next time you do post on RBS, maybe think about that a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to move on to our final little topic, how we're going to end the podcast, sort of ish. A known variable for most of us, especially North Americans, Shake Shack. It's here. Is it permanent?
Yes.
Okay, it is permanent. It is in Seoul. It is in Gangnam. We have some photos that I believe, James, you took on their opening day.
I took that opening day walking by.
Okay, I'll post it up on the YouTube video if you're watching. If you're just tuning in, just realize how would you describe the pictures, James?
Oh man,
Pathetic.
I instantly felt sorry for everyone that was waiting in line, and honestly, and that's a fault of mine too. I couldn't help snicker a little bit. I'm just like, all right, who are the sorry sacks that are waiting in line? Because you knew the lines were gonna be 3 or 4 hours, and I was actually going to meet a person who had gotten up and got in line at 7:30 that morning.
And what time did they open?
They opened at 10:30 or 11, but
11.
she didn't. 11.
Or 11:30.
Okay, and she was probably one of the first handful of people to go in, and my first thought was, man, there's no way you're going to catch me in line at 7:30 in the morning to go eat a burger. The payoff just wasn't there, and it wasn't like you were going to have this like life-changing experience either. It's a fast food burger.
It's something that Yet,
Can we have Thomas kind of preface, like, because maybe not everybody knows Shake Shack or what to expect from Shake Shack.
Okay, that's a good point.
It isn't, it's the East Coast.
It's the East Coast version of In-N-Out Burger.
Come on, that's rude to In-N-Out though. Come on.
Well, you could say the same thing either way, but it's basically the East Coast version of
Right.
In-N-Out Burger.
There's always the debate about
although
Shake.
the flavors are very different.
Right.
But whether it be In-N-Out, whether it be Shake Shack, they're both fast food burgers.
and thus they are an everyman's kind of food, right?
Right.
Not, and by definition, an everyman's food is not something that you have the luxury of waiting in line for.
Sure.
Yet here we are talking about it. The line went around, I believe, 3 sides of the building.
Yes.
Okay.
There were easily 350 people waiting in line, and it was probably
At a restaurant that you could say serve how many people at once at most?
I don't know. I didn't get close enough to actually look inside and see how many it sat.
But how many restaurants out there can serve 300, especially fast food,
none.
right? Yeah, that's surreal.
But it was to the point where they would have to give out they gave out umbrellas to people standing in line to sort of shelter them from the heat. They came out with drinks,
Wow.
So they were very accommodating, and then people turned in the umbrella when they got in, and they would give them to the next batch of people.
Well, that's why everyone had black umbrellas.
Yes, because they were giving them out as a sort of promo. You couldn't take it with you, but you could use it while you were standing in line. So that was very nice of them. And once again, that sort of sparks.
That's good on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's talk.
Well,
but
it
when
would
they're-
be terrible news if someone died right in front of their
absolutely.
doorsteps from heat stroke.
but when they're doing a shakedown at Shake Shack, basically like they're just like emptying people's wallets into their bank account right now, right? They're making a killing.
Oh, they made $100,000 in the first 3 days, right? Sold 10,000 burgers in 3 days.
I think they're set to make about $1 million for the first month
That's
Redonkulous.
That is some
on
pretty
a fast
good
food
money.
burger.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's pretty epic. All right, let's just get on the same page. Would you wait in line for it?
Hell no.
No, but I'm not going to hate on anybody else that does.
Right.
I'm actually planning to sometime before the end of the month because I want to make our burgers and I want to go take it there to do a side by side.
Oh, I thought you wanted the waiting in line
research.
experience.
No. I mean, for us, it's just more like we want to do a side by side comparison just to see how I feel like our cold burger is going to be better than their hot burger.
Okay, that's
So,
some big talk.
yeah,
from
that is
Cali
big
Kitchen,
talk. We'll see.
right?
Throwing down the gauntlet.
Oh, you better let our Foodie Call listeners know via the Facebook page. Give us a like. Find out how Chuck feels about that later on when he eventually goes around doing it. But Chuck, you and I, we have waited in line for a burger, and that burger was In-N-Out Burger. I remember catching you in line. You were nice enough to drop by and give me a book to help pass the time. I got through 50 pages of the book.
Damn.
And that was like a 3.5 hour wait. I did it by myself gladly. But the thing is, there's a nostalgia factor for In-N-Out for us West Coast kids that doesn't exist for Shake Shack, and thus I would never wait in line for it. So it's hard for me to knock anyone who would, but also it's easy to get cynical because this is Korea, more specifically this is Seoul, and people wait in line for what seems to be the most arbitrary things to us. There's a particular pizza restaurant in Haebangchon, but I don't enjoy going there enough to wait even 5 minutes in line. But on weekends or on holidays, the line is kind of up the block, right? The line culture here, can it be explained? Do you have a theory? I mean, is it just something that when something pops up on TV, people show up?
I think what's happening with Shake Shack and what's happening with the pizza place in question, I think it's two different reasons, though. I think Shake Shack is people wanting to be the first ones to experience it and doing the selfies and basically bragging to their friends. But I think the pizza place, I can't even explain that one.
So the Shake Shack, I like that it goes back to social media, which is
Neither
what we're
can
talking
the
about
owner,
today.
so it's not just you. Even the owner of the pizza place has been like, I didn't start out as a pizza place. I started out as a bar. And the pizza thing really took off, and it boggles him, right? But he's laughing all the way to the bank, so good on him.
Yeah, I've met the guy. He's a cool guy, right? It's kind of a weird thing, but there are places that are really high quality, and everyone knows of a few that are like, yeah, there's no waits in line. It's a better value. I just feel like sometimes people like to wait in line, but they hate it.
I actually would disagree in the sense that I feel, as a general rule, Koreans hate waiting in line more than people in the States, as a general rule. But what I think Koreans do like is, like, there's different reasons why they wait in line, right? There's something that is like a big brand like Shake Shack, or there is, like stuff that came out on TV, so people are lining up for it. It's the new fashionable thing to, whether it's churros, tiramisu, or steak just like plopped onto a top of a beer cup, like it's something so silly, and it's not even like you're there for that. You're there for, like what Thomas said, the selfie, right? So it's more, you're there for the wrong reasons, because you're not there for the object that you're actually there for.
You're there for the lifestyle and to tell people you're living, right?
Well, you're there to tell people that you did that.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with blogs being written. People go and they do exactly the same thing that they read in the blog. Right. And so that way, then they can say, oh, I was here. I did exactly the same thing. And yes, just like the blog said, it took me an hour of waiting in line to get a churros. And then I went down the street and waited another hour and a half to get a grilled cheese sandwich. And I had a great time doing it because that's what I read.
But even if they didn't have a great time, are they going to post it as if they didn't? Instagram, all these things are really designed to show you the life that everybody else wants, but even if yours is miserable, you're not going to show that it's miserable.
To induce fear of missing out,
Yeah.
right?
FOMO.
There we go. And oh man, what a sad existence it kind of paints, right? I would tell, and also to corroborate kind of what you're saying is, the people who are on social media are younger people. You
Oh,
don't-
absolutely.
Yeah, you don't see people in their 50s, 60s waiting in these lines, right?
Nope.
They're almost always younger people.
At least not for that type of food.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Gimmicky things.
Gimmicky
I
things.
mean, even if Shake Shack made the greatest burger in Seoul, I still wouldn't wait 3 hours, 4 hours in line for that. 3-4 hours of my time is pretty valuable.
Yes.
And if you weigh it's not about money or whatever, but my time is valuable for me. I'm not going to waste my time waiting for a burger.
You don't have that value on it.
No.
Which is perfectly fine. I feel like most people, if you actually lay it out for them, if you said, hey, let's go get your burger, we might have to wait a while, then they're not going to think about it too much. But if you said, hey, this is 3 hours of your life that you're going to spend in this line, then people are going to kind of sober up,
Sure.
right? That's something to think about. Don't just follow the crowd for the sake of following the crowd is what I want to say. And I do want to segue into a little positive thing to end on, stuff that is worth waiting for. It's been a while since we left our listeners with a recommendation, stuff we really enjoy. I'm going to go first. Stuff that I would wait in line for doesn't really exist. The last thing I waited in line for was actually the In-N-Out pop-up, which happens annually. And this was the first time I had a job in which I could just leave in the middle of the day and go do that. So I wanted to take advantage of my own personal freedom. But I would wait in line maybe 3 hours for like a solid donut, and not even like those psycho like crazy donuts that you have in like the Pacific Northwest. But there's a certain nostalgia that I feel when I have a donut about like the glaze on top, and if you get it just right, it really takes me back to my childhood, and I am willing to wait in line 3 hours to gamble on that prospect. So a good donut place, if you know one, I'm willing to wait in line. I don't want to by any means, but yeah, that's the only thing I can really think of. Chuck, you're looking at me kind of funny. What do you got to say?
Oh no, I just think it's always the donut, that's like your.
I'm basic, man. I'm simple.
I'm basic. I like donuts.
And every time I come to your restaurant, I always get the cookie, right? Or whatever dessert, right?
That is true. That is
Yeah.
true. That seems to be the poison of not only you, but another cookie monster at the table.
Are we talking about the edible donut or the female donut?
Oh my god.
Are you? I'm sure you're the only person in the world that calls it that.
Hello, donut.
Okay, what would you wait in line for? Or not even wait in line? What do you consider worth the wait,
The
Chuck?
female donut.
What is worth the wait? Oh wow. Actually, I haven't had good sushi in a long time, so I think good sushi would be something I would wait for. But I think I generally do crave some Japanese cuisine. So I mean, one of the things I've waited the longest in line for was actually in Japan. I went to this was a long time ago. I went to some rural area, and there was a Japanese place that was just kind of where all the locals went to. But this guy, he just made noodles and made soup until he sold out. But it was, you could tell like this was the place where like the people who were like the working class went, because it was a huge bowl of noodles, and I think I got one of the last bowls, so it just makes it
Almost
worth it.
tastes better.
Right, you're just like, sorry.
Okay, well, that's not something any of us can really enjoy if we're out here in Seoul, right? Thomas, do you have something?
I would not wait in line for anything.
Okay.
Just plain.
Thank you for
simple.
saying that, because I was like, am I the only one?
Would you wait in line for your own food? You're a chef.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, there you have it. That's honest.
Yeah, honestly, there's nothing that I can think of that I would voluntarily wait in line for. And if there were, it better really be f***ing fun. Because the last kind of food I waited for, I waited 3.5 hours to eat at Hansik Ulban, which is a low to mid-priced buffet that opened up at Gangnam Express Terminal.
Why
And
would you?
I went to meet some friends there,
Okay.
and I didn't realize how busy it was going to be. And we got there at 11:30. And
Is
they
that
had
the
this
place where they slide the table on your table?
No. This is just a
Okay.
new buffet there. And we picked, a friend of mine beat me there by half an hour, and he picked a number, and it was like 120 something.
Okay.
And I looked at this digital stand where they were at, and they were serving table number 1.
Oh, it's so depressing. And you know what the thing is, for food like that, for Hanshik, it's great, but there's plenty of great Korean food out and about everywhere.
Never again.
Yeah.
But the nice thing was at least you didn't have to sit there. You could go to Starbucks and have some coffee. You go to the bookstore and read. But
Yeah,
every
network
once in a while you
system
come
works.
back and check where you are. But yeah, nothing.
But Korea's kind of good about some of that stuff, right? So as in like even in the States, if you're going to watch a movie on premiere night, you know, you're waiting in line, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But then in Korea, you just buy the ticket and you have an assigned seat. It's kind of
I think that's why I feel like I wouldn't wait in line because I don't know why I should have to. There are so many ways to get reservations for stuff to where, like the movies, that you don't have to wait overnight to try and get a movie ticket.
Feels like overall we're almost unanimously opposed to the lines here.
I feel like I'm the least opposed to the lines, like in the sense of maybe it's because I've had good experiences, like, you know, I did Black Friday before it was called Black Friday, you know, like, and that was just because we were geeks and we just like, you know.
You enjoy the DMV, Chuck?
No. See, that's different. That's line for the sake of. I think nobody likes waiting for the sake of waiting. But you know, when there's community or like if you're, it's like even if you're in a horrible situation, if you're with some friends, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can be
I get what you're
miserable
saying there.
together.
Well,
It's
I
better
don't
than
know if
being
I'd want to be
miserable.
miserable with you because you're part of the misery, you know.
I think Chuck still has a lot of that youthful exuberance still in him. It's like, for me, I don't. I'm just jaded. I don't have time for that. So
Okay, that's where we're gonna leave off. I don't have time for that. I like that famous last words there from James Yu. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to click like on Facebook. We have our own Facebook page, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. All the links are in the description. For Foodie Call,
This is Chuck.
This is Thomas.
James.
and I'm GP. We'll catch you in the next one.
이번역은 사당역입니다. 내리실 건 왼쪽입니다. 잠시 뒤나 신도림 방면으로 가실 분께서 이번역에서 2호선으로 바랍니다.
It's a turn on.
You know,
for
like I'm comfortable. You know, I'm comfortable around you, which is what you want me to be, right? And she's like, yeah, of course I want you to be comfortable. I was like, well, that's when I fart. And then like
Did you fart right after you said that?
like immediately. Like I was holding it in. I was like, I brought it up.
You want me to be? You want me to be comfortable around you, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see that Facebook post about the most beautiful fart ever?
No.
It was this guy who farted, recorded it, and then slowed it down enough to be 1 octave below the true pitch, and it turned out to be like this perfect A minor arpeggio. So it was like dee nee 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 nee.
Oh, come on.
And then he set it to background music, and he kept on playing it, and it actually sounded good.
We're going to find this, and then this is going to be like after the outro jingle, it's just going to be your monologue of this. You guys ready?
With it just playing. Oh my gosh.